Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. It is Wednesday, May 11th, 2022, and tonight is another edition of Comic Books and the Paranormal. As always, you can find all the links to the podcast, all episodes of the podcast, as well as links to social media, ways to donate, and other ways to contact me at the podcast page, which is salcedoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions for shows, or if you have stories of experiences with the paranormal, whether they're your own or others that you trust. Always happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. And I believe that covers all of that. And I will talk about the rest of the week near the end of the show. And I believe that takes care of that. As always, just keep in mind if you... I always appreciate when you listen to the podcast or YouTube channels, but if you ever want to be... to get more from the podcast, I guess you could say, I would definitely recommend joining the Discord server and being there if you can for the live streams, because there's a text chat and then images that are shared during these streams that it's hard to share after the fact, just because there's so much of it. So definitely would recommend joining the Discord as well, which can also be found at the podcast page. So, and of course, when we do these comic book episodes, I don't do these alone. So I'd like to welcome Derek, Night Stalker, into the show. Hello, Derek.
Hey, James. Thanks for having me again. It's going to be a fun one tonight.
No problem. Thank you for agreeing to do these with me. I always appreciate that.
No, they're always fun. It gives me a good excuse to crank through all these trade paperbacks and graphic novels that I have on my shelf that I haven't actually read yet. So, and this one is actually very relevant to the current zeitgeist and to the current Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it's kind of a little special episode for us tonight.
Well, that sounds good to me. I've heard of this group that we're talking about, which is the Illuminati in Marvel. Of course, yeah. There's different groups that have used that name in the real world in history.
Yeah.
But this is a little bit different. This is the Marvel version, I guess you could say.
Exactly.
So
essentially,
if you want to jump right in.
Yeah. Essentially, these guys they're the biggest geniuses. You just said it in the little description before the show started, but are the biggest geniuses in the Marvel universe, and they've kind of secretly been. This is during the Brian Michael Bendis era. So this is around like the time of Civil War and Secret Invasion and that type of era. But they're secretly kind of guiding the entire Marvel universe and behind the scenes and kind of controlling what's happening. This is a good description here of who they are. I don't know if you want to just read what you typed in before to kind of explain who they all are, and then I'll hop right into the story.
Yeah. So there's the image in the chat of one of the major covers, and it has all these people, and in the cover image. Now, some of them are kind of associated with each other, but not quite. I'll just go over this real quick, and we'll go from there. Iron Man, Tony Stark. I'm not even going to say genius for each of these because I think they're all basically geniuses in their own ways.
Yeah.
But one of the leaders of the Avengers. A lot of these groups, especially for the Avengers and the X-Men, there's not just really one leader. There's been multiple leaders over time.
Yeah.
And he's Iron Man has, of course, had his own different series over the years as well. And of course, then there's now the next one might not be as well known, and that is Black Bolt, who is the leader of a nation known as the Inhumans. And they all have different powers that are somewhat activated by these mists that they cultivate. But they all have powers, and his power basically is this extremely powerful voice, so much so that he can't even use it.
Yeah.
Really, without destroying things. But also as the head of this nation, this almost like a species in a way.
Yeah.
He's again just they're all geniuses, and he's the head of a country or basically a nation, so he's a leader.
Yep.
So there's that, and of course you have Doctor Strange, who is, as I said in the chat here, one of the most powerful mystics and or magicians in Marvel. He was only later on associated with the Avengers. He's always worked with heroes, but never really was on the main team until just like the last decade or so.
Yeah.
And then you have Reed Richards, or also known as Mr. Fantastic, leader of the Fantastic Four. When that group isn't doing a lot of their adventuring, they're always researching things. They're basically scientists. Mr. Fantastic and his wife, the Invisible Woman, are both scientists. So, and they're also explorers in a way. They explore other galaxies and dimensions, even in other universes. So, big major character in Marvel, just in terms of the lore. Excuse me, and
First family, basically.
Yeah, they're almost always involved in the major events in the comics. If they're not, then they're conveniently not in the area, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
You could say. Then you have Namor, who is the king of Marvel's version of Atlantis, underwater kingdom. He basically has to spend so much time below the water or in the water and then out of the water to maintain basically his sanity, because at different times he's kind of he's had problems with that over the years. But he's also a mutant, and he's another one of those characters. He's been in the comics since the very beginning, really. I think like 1939, 1940.
Yeah.
But he wasn't really associated with any teams directly, really, until, I guess, somewhat the Avengers here and there. But more so now, the X-Men, because of being a mutant, and also just because of the X-Men kind of working with him and his kingdom at different times. So now they're kind of connected. And of course, you have Professor Xavier, or Professor X, who is the founder and then one of the main leaders of the X-Men. And then, of course, leader of the mutant community in general. He's really... a lot of people look up to him, and have looked up to him over the years.
Exactly.
So, yeah. There's other characters involved there, but he's basically at the top. Sorry.
Yeah. Pretty much these guys are like the guiding hands, or like the brains of the operation, or like the most smartest person for all their respective kind of sections of the Marvel Universe. And between them all, they're essentially account for at least all the characters on Earth. Like, not really the out of space characters, but at least everybody on Earth are represented by this like collective of people. I mean, so when they make a decision, they're making decisions for essentially everyone on Earth, pretty much, which is pretty much a big parallel to the hypothetical actual Illuminati of guiding the hands of humanity. You know.
Yeah, and they're I was just thinking about this earlier. This is probably one of the most well-known groups of like that in Marvel, but there have been different groups throughout before and even after that take up this kind of a role as to be leaders of either the entire Earth or large portions of it. So, but this is probably the most well-known one of these groups.
Exactly. And the big tie-in, the reason why we're doing this is because the MCU is introducing the Illuminati into Doctor Strange 2. And that's not a spoiler. That's been the center of their marketing campaign for the last like 2 months. So they're very much presenting that. It's not a spoiler, but figured it's a good time to kind of get familiar with the Illuminati, and it's a big tie over to cross it to paranormal and conspiracy type stuff, and it gives a chance to get a taste of like the wider the wider Marvel universe, you know. So, but unfortunately, there was no synopsis for this online anywhere, and there was no Wikipedia page for this. They're just basically just a bunch of articles, especially because of the movie, pretty much just explaining who they are, basically just doing what James just did, but James did a better version of what they've been doing. But the actual story is not really online. So all these notes I took, I might be a little too verbose. I basically just scripted out the entire story. So I'll try to make it quick. But
That's
do
odd.
you want to get? It's weird. It
is-
is really weird. Yeah, I was trying
that
to
is
find it, but
odd.
I couldn't find it. You could find the actual. I found a bunch of sites that had the whole comic online, but nothing that actually like no Cliff Note versions of it. No Wikipedia type articles to describe the actual story itself. So
Wow, that is
yeah,
great. Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Huh.
on one hand, this might get a little long, so I'll try to be quick. But on the other hand, I'm pretty confident that I know the story because these notes are all my own. So you ready?
Yeah. Let's go for it.
Okay. All right. Basically, the story, like the first page, explains that we're kind of like just coming off a Kree Skrull war a couple years earlier, and it explains pretty much what James just explained about who the actual Illuminati is, like who they represent and stuff. And then the story opens up on a Skrull planet with a Skrull general explaining to like the Skrull leader that they failed to conquer Earth, and the leader says that it was prophesized that Skrull world would fall and that they'd take over Earth, they'd invade Earth. So like, why did they lose? How did it happen? And the soldier says that they didn't anticipate that the Kree would come and help, and they didn't anticipate the amount of Homo superiors there were, the amount of mutants, and how the amount of mutants are just constantly increasing. And then how much superheroes, like how many superheroes that would actually be on this planet. They didn't realize Earth was so special and that it is so many heroes, so many powered beings. And then we hear, "Excuse me, Your Highness," and the Illuminati are standing there, and we see like the big introduction of all of them, and they're basically like, "This is it for you. We're not going to tolerate another invasion." Like Charles is speaking for Black Bolt, and like saying that you guys, it's done for you. It's over. Don't try it again. And Iron Man goes, "You come for us, we come for you." But like the Skrull leader wasn't having it, so he was pretty much just like, "Get out of here. You guys are inferior to me." And then through Charles, Black Bolt calls him, I'm sorry to hear that, and then says like one word. We don't see what he says, and completely destroys the Skrull ship that they're on. Basically, the entire Skrull planet that we see, they basically decimate everything. And then Namor is like pumped about it. He's like, "Rejoice, rejoice! Like, why shouldn't we be enjoying this?" And the other people are all kind of looking at him like, "Take it easy here. We're supposed to be heroes. It's not genocide isn't really our thing." And like that's one part about Namor is like he's a little bit crazy, and he's like a conqueror kind of. He's all about like Atlantis conquering the surface world a lot of the time. So he's a lot of like when he's not working with a team like this with the Illuminati or with like Captain America back in World War II and stuff. Usually he's like at odds with Earth with humans, you know. So this is part of his character. So their ship's flying back to Earth. They're supposed to be cloaked, but then all of a sudden they start taking on fire. And the ship just explodes. Doctor Strange like puts them in these kind of mystical bubbles, whatever. But then he's hit, and kind of all the bubbles pop, and like it cuts to black. And then we cut to Reed Richards, and he's being like stretched out like crazy in this big contraption, kind of being tortured by these mad scientists. It's the same. They're like, it's a good day for the Skrulls after all. Like we captured the Illuminati, and they're pumped because like the group they got is a collection of all the different types of power people on Earth, and they're like, yeah, we can finally test the limits of Reed Richards' stretchability, and we can acquire all these powers that all the different heroes of Earth have, pretty much. And then it cuts from like scene to scene. We see Namor being like dried out, being kept without water. The Skrulls are like laughing at the idea of the Homo superior because they consider themselves to be completely superior to everyone on Earth. And they're like, superior, give me a break here. We see Black Bolt and this other contraption, and the scientists are saying that his vocal cords have been incapacitated, but they can't remove them because they're afraid. They don't know how they work, and they're afraid if they try to remove them, it'll basically destroy the entire planet. But they're disgusted by him because like the Inhumans, they call like quote Kree spawn, and they're like disgusted by the idea of the Terrigen mist that turns them into Inhumans because there's a strong Kree connection to the Inhumans, and the Skrulls have been at war with the Kree for millennia. Charles is kind of easy for them to figure out, they say, because they understand the mutant genome. Because I think the Skrulls were at one point mutated, similar to how the X-Men were. Doctor Strange, they can't figure out the same way, so they call in these Skrull priests to work magic on them. they realize that Iron Man is just a fragile human who's encased himself in what they call primitive technology, but they're like really interested in the fact that the suit keeps him alive. And then we cut to Tony locked away in his prison, and we see like Thor knock on like the glass of his prison, and he has like always said we see Captain America and all the Avengers there showing up to save him. But Tony's like, "Who do you think I am? Like, I'm in the Illuminati for a reason. I'm the smartest guy in the world for a reason. That you're a Skrull. You're like the Skrulls are shapeshifters. That's their thing. They're like basically these shape-shifting reptilian things." So he's like, they're all like, "We knew it. We knew we couldn't get the information out of him by pretending to be his team. We have to dissect them pretty much." But Tony beats them all up pretty much, and he's like, "Thanks, Cap, for teaching me how to do hand-to-hand combat." And he goes and he busts out Charles Xavier. They go and get Namor and Doctor Strange, and then they pick up like the biggest Skrull ship in the Armada. As the Armada is like basically chasing them. Strange like uses the spell to keep Tony's heart pumping and everything. They try to find Reed, and they're shocked to see him being like tortured and stretched out. And it's the way they show it in the art. It's like real body horror. It's real like I can't believe that the Skrulls are being this disgusting, pretty much. So they're all in the ship. They get everybody out. They're all in the ship, but they're being chased by the entire Armada. So they ask Strange to make some type of illusion. He's like, "I don't know if I have the power to make something big enough to confuse an entire planet," pretty much. And then Xavier says, "What if I help you?" And then the next panel we see Galactus, like a giant Galactus, like covered in asteroids and stuff, and it freaks out the entire planet. And I'll try to post that image in the chat right now so you can see it. It's pretty cool. And then, sorry, I gotta find my spot again.
No problem.
What do you think about that so far?
That's amazing. I mean, that's a huge deal right there.
Yeah.
Especially knowing a little bit of what I do about Secret Invasion.
Exactly.
We won't get into right now, but
yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So they all get away. They're sitting together, saying that it's not over, and they'll come for them. And Tony says that maybe now that they'll think twice about coming to Earth, and everyone kind of looks at him like, "Come on." And he's like, "All right, well, at least they'll know it's going to be a good fight." And then we cut to the Skrull leader again, and he's asking them what they got from the Illuminati, or if they got what they needed from the Illuminati. And he's told, yeah. And he says to tell the priest of science to get it done. And it doesn't matter how long it takes, but just make it happen. And we don't know what he's referring to yet, but he's like, "We got what we wanted. Continue the plan." And that's the end of the first issue. And then we go to issue 2, and then we see the Illuminati sitting around this table, and Reed Richards is explaining what the Infinity Stones are to them. And that's the picture I posted with all their names in it a couple minutes ago in the chat. They ask how he got the Power Stone, and he says one of She-Hulk's villains got it, and she gave it to him. And then Tony's like laughing. He's like, She-Hulk's villains got an Infinity Stone? He keeps making fun of her, basically. And they all discuss it, like every time someone tries to collect the stones and use the stones, that it means bad news for Earth, that somehow Earth is always mixed up in it, and that there are 5 more stones scattered around the universe. And that Reed says, like, we should secretly go out and find these stones before somebody else does. And then he opens up a briefcase, revealing that he already has the Infinity Gauntlet, the Power Stone, and then 2 more stones that he did, like they didn't realize till just now. And Reed discusses a new finding that he says that the stones might actually be alive, and then no matter how far apart the stones are, they actually communicate to each other. So maybe we can use one of the stones to find other stones. And then he says that he got overwhelmed trying to collect them, like trying to collect this many, and then he needs help. And Namor is like freaking out. He's like, "You're just a man. How dare you even try to collect all the stones?" Like, Thanos is this crazy powerful cosmic titan thing, and like Reed Richards is just a guy. It's way above his pay grade to try to do this. And then they explain like 2 previous times someone's tried to collect all of them, and both times they used it. Both times they diffused it, Namor says. And then Reed's like, "Well, yeah, but last time that happened, I ceased to exist. I stopped living. So excuse me for freaking out and trying to like nip this in the bud when I can." And I'm not really sure what he's referring to. I don't know when. I think there was like a more recent Infinity event with Thanos, but I don't think I've read that one.
There's they pop up. Those stones pop up in Marvel every so many years. There's an event where they all are gathered, or where they're being hunted for. And so yeah, it's they're around in more than just the big event that is known in the movies or any like the Infinity Gauntlet, that event or the Infinity War. There's been Infinity events over the years, so it's probably not as important. But yeah.
Then the gems show them where the others are by like kind of making it. They kind of transport them to this kind of astral outer space area. It's like real trippy and cool. And then they find out that the mind gem has quote like slipped from the perceivable world and lodged itself in the collective unconscious, which is like kind of trippy. And then the reality gem sits on the edge of reality itself, and the time gem seems to be adrift in time, and like Reed's trying to use the others to get it. So we cut to Charles, Namor, and Doctor Strange at the Cerebro room. Do you want to explain what Cerebro is, real quick?
Yeah, it's basically it enhances any telepath's ability so that they can. Usually, it's more commonly used to find mutants, different mutants. Yep. In the beginning, it was used to find them, to save them, to rescue them from dangerous situations they were in, I believe. But then, of course, over the years, it's been used for other reasons as well, including now, if you want to go to the movies again, it was even used as a weapon against mutants at one point in the X-Men movies. So, it
sometimes has this real like kind of Big Brother type feel where Charles is kind of spying on everybody. Kind of sometimes, and other times it's just
he's one of those characters. When he was first made, I think he was, obviously just made to be this really smart hero. But over the years, people have kind of figured that out, that, if you have that much power, there's a lot you can do. And he has done things in the shadows with Cerebro and just on his own that says he's doing them for the greater good. But they're not always things that other people would approve of. And that's an idea that pops up. I mean, Cyclops did the same thing for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
That just happens when you're that's kind of ironic. When you're in charge of such a major operation, that will happen sometimes, I think.
Yeah. And that kind of unifies all the people in the Illuminati. Like Reed Richards is known as kind of being off his rocker a little bit too, and he'll do crazy stuff, and he'll test the limits for sure. Same with Tony Stark. Like in the movie, like not in the comics, but in the movies, he's the one who makes Ultron, which people are like, why would you ever make it? Like you didn't even hesitate to make this crazy AI thing. He just like they all take it upon themselves to help the Earth when it might not necessarily be in the best interest of everybody else. Sometimes. We cut to Charles, Namor, and Doctor Strange in the Cerebro room. Doctor Strange is going to anchor them and is going to tie his astral form to Charles' psychic projections. This is kind of real Bendis speak. I kind of just copied exactly how it's said. But then Charles wraps his mind around theirs, tapping them all into the collective unconscious of the entire universe. But then they realize the mind gem isn't part of the collective unconscious. It actually is the collective unconscious, which is creepy. And then we cut to the Baxter building. Tony and Reed are working with Black Bolt. It's hard to find one stone after finding another, so they're trying to find two of the exact stones at the same time. So like Tony's like, why are we splitting up? To Reed, like we should be doing this all together. And Reed's like, it's tough. If we went to find one, it'd be really, really tough to find the other. So our best bet's to find them at the same exact time. So Black Bolt is in this like shield tube thing, this orange shieldy thing, and he speaks like within this tube, and it's kind of collecting the energy, and the power output of him speaking is just incredible. And like Reed and Tony really can't believe it, and you kind of see both of them be like, whoa, what if we tap into this? What if we use this for something else? But his voice actually pierces a hole in reality itself. So we cut back like within this construct that Tony and Reed made. So then we cut back to the collective unconscious area, and it's massive inside, and it looks like water, which once again, water popping up always. They realize it's because they all thought they were going to this massive giant location, so it uses their own kind of minds to project what it looks like. So because they thought that, then it showed them this massive place. And then all of a sudden, from beneath them, this giant shark, this huge, like kind of astral monster shark, comes and like looks like it's about to eat them. And we cut back to the Baxter building, which is where Reed and Tony and Black Bolt are. And the Baxter building is the headquarters of Fantastic Four, and it's like in the same skyline as the Avengers Tower and everything. Everything's all happening in New York City. So they find the gem because Black Bolt tore the hole in reality. So they find this reality stone. Tony grabs it, but the energy's like too much for him. So they see, like, they all thought the suit would be able to withstand it, but his arm starts disappearing and his whole body starts vanishing, and he screams like, "Reed, help me, help me!" And then we cut back to the collective unconscious with Strange and Charles and Namor. And then they realize that the shark is probably Namor's fault, and they pulled the Mind Stone pulled that from his projection. So we cut back to, and it's basically just chaos. And then we cut back to the Baxter building, and reality's like completely disintegrating. Reality's falling apart. And Reed tells Black Bolt to get his family out of there, and he grabs the gauntlet. He's like, "This can't be how it ends." But like reality's just being destroyed pretty much for them from then cutting a hole in it and grabbing the stone. And then it just keeps cutting back and forth between Reed trying to wield the reality stone, and then this giant collective unconscious shark trying to eat them all pretty much in one bite, as Strange is trying to like subdue it with different spells and stuff. And then the dust all settles, the light all kind of goes away, and Reed is standing there holding the reality stone in the gauntlet, and Tony's there, like, he's fine, he's okay, but he's like kind of shaken up, and he says he hopes the other team had better luck. And then Namor shows up with the Mind Stone. They add it to the gauntlet, and then apparently by collecting the 5 stones, all of a sudden the 6th stone just appears. It just like the gauntlet manifested it for them. It summoned it for them, they said. As the stone is like slowly about to go into the gauntlet, everyone is shouting at Reed to like take the glove off. He's like, "You can't wield the entire gauntlet. You can't do this. Like, take it off. Reed, stop." But he isn't listening. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Uatu, the Watcher, shows up, which is like pretty badass when I was reading it. And the Watcher is this like cosmic entity that it's not supposed to intervene in reality, just kind of there to observe everything, but just always intervenes in different stories. And he says he expected better from Reed. He says he intervened countless times because he thought that they were better than this, but now Reed is disappointed in them. Reed says he tried to will the gauntlet to cease to exist, but it didn't work. The stones wouldn't let him. And then Reed says that everyone should take one gem and hide it away. Don't use it. Don't tell everyone or anyone where else it is, or don't tell anyone where else you've hidden it. Uatu says it's not his decision to make, but he's glad he wasn't corrupted by the stones. He wasn't changed by him. But then, like, when he says that, we see Charles' face being like, "Are we sure he didn't get changed by these stones?" And Charles is a mind reader, so we have to assume that maybe he did. And then the issue just ends. That's the end. That's the end of issue 2. So, what do you think so far?
That's
a lot of breath.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's also crazy. We're already at half-hour mark here, almost.
I know. It gets a little shorter as I keep going.
Okay.
Like it was in the beginning, so my notes were more verbose.
No problem. But yeah, no, that fits Namor, a giant shark. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing about all these characters. Like we were saying, this is kind of all. This is just reinforcing what we already said, that they do have the best intentions for the most part. But they're also they're willing to do so much that sometimes things get a little bit or more than a little bit crazy in the process.
Yeah, exactly. And is that an analogy for the actual Illuminati? Do they believe they have our best interests in mind, and then they cause all this chaos that we experience all the time? Who's to say? Who knows? But,
yeah.
All right, so issue 3.
Any major group like that. Any major group.
Exactly.
Even any major group of we can even take it to spirits or aliens or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so issue 3, we cut to Charles Xavier talking about the Beyonder. The Beyonder created Battle World. He took 37 men and women from planet Earth to go fight. Charles said he could have stopped it all. He could have put everyone to sleep and sorted it all out, but he was afraid of the Beyonder. He was afraid of what if he could make this all happen. Who's to say if someone interfered, he wouldn't just destroy humanity instantly? He said the Beyonder pulled him into his consciousness, and he felt like something almost mutant inside the Beyonder's mind. That the Beyonder wasn't a galactic entity; he was something else. And then he reveals that he was ... an inhuman secretly. But then he said, which is a revelation. And then he realizes that he was also a mutant, and that he must have had his mutant awakening before he entered the Inhuman Terrigen Mist, and that what happened, the combination of the two, was like unthinkable. and that's what created Beyonder, this like cosmic entity that can distort reality and is really way more powerful than anyone else. So Namor asks like why he called a meeting and everything, and Charles says because he's detecting the Beyonder approaching again. So Charles uses Cerebro to locate the Beyonder. He says he's in a planet Ceres in the asteroid belt, and they ask, "But what are we going to do when we get there against an entity beyond time and space?" Namor says, "We will do nothing. He will bow down and pray forgiveness from his king, which is Black Bolt." And then we see a few panels of them looking back at each other, being like, "Are you sure?" And then it cuts to black. So we cut back to what looks like we're in Stark Tower, looking at the Skrull ship that they stole. Tony is apparently missing, but Reed has control of the ship because they're working on it together. They were supposed to destroy it, but Tony and Reed are making too much money off reverse engineering all of it, which may or may not be happening. That might be happening with the secret breakaway civilization using all the secret alien tech to make kind of crazy stuff. Who knows? But we cut the Illuminati approaching the asteroid belt in the Skrull ship. Dr. Strange gets kind of woozy, and he's like, "Something's here. There's a presence here." And then we see an entire island of Manhattan floating inside the asteroid belt. And they're like, "Whoa, what is that?" So they want to go down there and check it out. They see the Beyonder somewhere, like the Beyonder somewhere down there. They say they're going to ask people where he is, like try to figure out what's going on there. But then Doctor Strange is like, no, there's nobody down there. But then like, no, there's people walking around. He's like, no, there's no life aura here, like none. Meaning like all these people are just kind of projections. There's no actual humans here. So then they see Beyonder has given himself human form, and he's interacting with like a fake version of Spider-Man, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage, kind of like getting himself into his own fake Avengers, Defenders type adventures, kind of in this like fake Manhattan. So then the Beyonder sees them and meets them instantly teleports over to them. And he's like, "Who are you guys? Like, how do you have real molecules? Who gave you real molecules?" And he's like, "Oh wow, they're actually real people." And he bows down to Lord Boltagon, which is Black Bolt. And then out of nowhere, Hulk comes and just smashes everybody. Smashes Namor, smashes Beyonder. And Beyonder's like, "Oops, I forgot I scheduled a Hulk attack." Because this is all just his Beyonder's play world, pretty much. He tells Black Bolt that he can talk in this world, and his voice can't hurt anyone or anything. And it's kind of his gift to him, you know? Nobody believes it. And then Charles gets mad at him for tampering with the natural order of things. They tell him he can't interfere, and that we're a species that needs to come to its own on its own. And he's like, "Well, you guys interfere all the time." And they're like, "It's our species," you know, in a real like kind of sneaky evil way. Yeah. He's like, "Well,
as we say, not as we do."
Exactly. Yeah. He says he just wants to do good, and that he can make the world the way that they want it. And it cuts to Doctor Strange waking up in bed with two women, and we hear, "I am from beyond. All of your desires shall be yours." And then we see a bunch of Iron Man robots. We see like flying all around, kind of protecting the world. We've seen Atlantean coming to do battle with the surface world and just kind of steal it for King Namor. But Namor's pissed, and he's like, "Stop this madness." Namor scolds the Beyonder for Black Bolt, because Black Bolt can't speak, telling them that his king orders him to stop. And all of a sudden, the Beyonder turns to stone randomly. I don't know, it doesn't really explain it. And then, kind of, I guess maybe out of shame, he turns his like human avatar into stone. So the asteroids start to approach this Manhattan thing, and the Illuminati get out of there. And then it cuts back to like what looks like actual Earth, actual Manhattan. And Beyonder's like, "Well, where was I?" I mean, so he got rid of this projection, and he pops into real Manhattan to run amok, pretty much. And it cuts to black. That's the end of the issue. And I think all these, it's tough because I'm reading it in the collected form, so it's all just 5 issues back to back.
Right.
But I think the way it happened in real life, it's like these 5 issues are over the course of 2 or 3 years.
Oh, okay.
So one is like, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The last 2, and they're much quicker. So at issue 4, Doctor Strange is sulking. He tells Reed that his protege Clea left him to go rule the Dark Dimension, which we talked about, I think before. Or I'm not sure I think the Dark Dimension might be different than Limbo. Actually, now that I'm saying out loud.
Yeah, I think they're usually different dimensions. Yeah.
Yeah. He says that she decided it would be better for her to be better use of her time to battle demons, goblins, fire lords, and the Antichrists than to actually be married to me. And he's real depressed. And we get a few pages of the Illuminati basically just talking about their wives. And Namor tells Reed that his wife gets mad at him because she's locked in a cage of his making. And a really interesting perspective on the Fantastic Four, that she likes him, that they dated for a little while when they were kids or whatever, and then all of a sudden he just gives her these powers because of this accident and traps her in the Baxter building because they have to understand what's up with the powers, and she's basically in this kind of ivory tower, and she does love him, but like she kind of came around to that, and that it's real. She's in this kind of prison world, and it kind of shook Reed a little bit. So like they come to the real point of the meeting. Apparently, Marvel Boy, a Novar, a young alien man from the Kree Empire, has declared war on Earth. He's in prison now, but he's plotting his escape. So they worry about his escape as much as they worry about the Kree finding out that they imprisoned him in the first place. And it would cause like a Kree invasion. So they talk about trying to convince him to stop. And Tony says to Charles to just pull the thought right out of his head. And he says that he doesn't do that. Tony's like, "Are you sure you don't like? You definitely do that." And he says if he did do that, his students wouldn't be murdered all the time, and the mutants would be the dominant race on the planet. And so Tony's like, "Okay, I get it, but maybe you should do that then in the future if that would help you." So they go to the prison. Namor beats on this guy. Novar explains like the long history of relationships between the Kree and the Earth. And he's like a war against the Earth is a war against yourself. Like the Kree and the Earth have long alliances and stuff. And they show him Mar-Vell, the original Captain Marvel, who also was a Kree. Reed tells him that humans are dumb, but Mar-Vell wanted to protect them, not for who they are now, but for who they could become in the future. And they tell him to make a choice to like earn his way out of prison, basically like to become Mar-Vell, pretty much. So we cut to Reed planning a date with Sue, and the rest of the Illuminati kind of like incorporating these like the discussion they had into their own lives. And then we see Novar contemplating Mar-Vell, like he's trying to like see himself as Mar-Vell, as the new Captain Marvel. And then the issue ends. And then once again, there's probably 6 months in between this issue and the last issue. And then it cuts into issue 5. It's the last one. And I think the cover for this, I'll post it in the chat right now. It's the beginning of Secret Invasion. This is essentially like one of the first panels we see too, which is this scroll version of Elektra. All right, so we see this coffin cocoon thing, seemingly a dead body. All the Illuminati are being assembled by Tony Stark. This seems to be post-Civil War, so tensions are really high. Tony opens up the body bag and reveals a dead scroll version of Elektra. Tony believes that we're at war with the Skrulls, so what we did to their home world, I think in issue 1, where they blew it all up, and that we're being invaded. And worse, we can't detect who the Skrulls are. Not with technology, not with magic, not with mutant powers, or nothing. So Tony says, think about the year we had. Avengers destroyed, we're fighting each other, mutants are all but gone, Atlantis basically destroyed, Nick Fury's gone, Captain America's dead, and it feels like we're being manipulated from the inside. So a lot of that, I'm not actually like sure what happened. I don't know what happened to Atlantis. I don't know what happened to Fury or like. So those are some events we can probably cover in the future, maybe, because it's around the time period that we like. So everything is upside down. This quote: "Everything is upside down," and this is the key and the point at the scroll body. So they discuss possible solutions until Black Bolt says he's going to take the body. And he goes, "Your people will be destroyed, so my people will live," he says, and like his word bubbles turn to green. But it's the fact that he has word bubbles in the first place means it's not actually Black Bolt. And then the next panel, we see this like huge scroll covered in like war armor, basically, and it's just a huge all-out melee as they try to throw everything at the scroll. But it kind of appears that the scroll can stretch like Reed Richards and stuff. But then Namor impales the scroll. He kills him, and Tony gets mad because they wanted to use him for information. But then a larger invasion happens. Tony locks on to a bunch of nuclear power stations and detonates them all at the same time, killing all these Skrulls. They all collect themselves. They're kind of freaked out that nobody can detect who these Skrulls are. They all discuss that it seems like they took what they needed from them when they were kidnapped in issue 1. Like they kind of took their powers because this guy was using Reed Richards' powers. They realize that they're in an all-out war right now. Namor says he can't trust any of them and flies away. And they all agree, saying, like, who can we trust? And the last panel is just them all looking at each other and then walking away from each other. And it says, like, Secret Invasion begins. And that's Secret Invasion starts. That's the end of it. Pretty wild, right?
Yeah, it is. And that's just in a way they kind of they kind of started it in their own way.
They kind of caused it.
Yeah,
Seems like it kind of
it
seems like
does.
yeah.
Yeah, at the very least
Unfortunately,
played a part in it. And that's the thing about the
yeah,
Skrulls. They're shapeshifters, and they, and they're just as willing to experiment on themselves and others, as anyone
exactly.
else is. So I've seen some of the art for that event with different Skrulls having like Wolverine's claws, you
Yep,
know, visors like
exactly.
Cyclops where they can fire energy beams from their eyes,
Yeah,
just all those kinds of things. So
exactly. And there's no way to tell how long the infiltration has been happening. So during the actual secret invasion event, they realized that like it's not that they're being invaded right now, is that they've been infiltrated years ago, and that like that the Skrulls are already in positions of power within the government, within Shield, within all these organizations. And they don't know who's who. And Secret Invasion is actually coming out on Disney Plus, starring Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury in like a series. I think at the end of the summer or before the end of the year.
oh wow.
So we should definitely cover that event at some point before the show comes out.
Yeah, we got to get back to covering the major events at some point here soon too.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
Yeah, next week if you want. Yeah.
okay.
Or no, next time.
Yeah, next time. Yeah. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds good. Yeah, we'll do that.
But
no,
that's it though.
that was amazing, and it yeah, it just seems like all these characters, they all have histories of messing with, forces beyond themselves, and
This is actually
yeah.
this is actually the first trade paperback I ever bought. Like I was buying like single issues and stuff at first, but this is the first actual graphic novel that I purchased. And then my dream was to see it actually, like my time since the idea of introducing the X-Men and the Fantastic Four into the Marvel Cinematic the MCU was all about like make it so there's different theories of how they're going to happen. Is Wanda going to say more mutants the way she did in House of M, like no more mutants,
Oh.
kind of create mutants? But like personally, I didn't want Charles Xavier to be young, to be a new mutant. I don't want Reed Richards to be a new hero while Tony Stark is like dead already. He's already been around for 15 years and he's gone. I want him to be all at the same level where Reed Richards, Charles Xavier, Tony Stark, they're all the same. They all have the same gravitas. I want the Illuminati to be on screen. But there's just no way it was going to happen. And then fast forward to last week, and the Illuminati are in the MCU, and they did it much differently than the way it's in the story. So there's no spoilers in what we just talked about, but it was very cool to see them pop up in the actual movie. So fun. Thank you, James, for letting us do it this week, and I had a blast.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for covering this. Like I said earlier in the direct messages, that's all this research here this time than the last time, maybe the last couple of times. A lot of this research was from Derek, so I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I got to.
All right. Well, I will let you go. But yeah, thank you again for being
Awesome.
with me here and covering this.
Thank you, and thank you for everybody for listening. I hope you had fun. All right, later. See you later.
Yep. Thank you. So yeah, there we have that. I had heard of this group in the comics. I'd heard of the event, but hadn't really been super familiar with it. So this was I enjoyed this as well. So tomorrow night will be more true paranormal stories from the web. Friday will be I'll be having Michael Strange from Troubled Minds Radio on with me. So it should be a good rest of the week. And thank you all for being here. And we will talk tomorrow night on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care.